Hey, welcome back to Wicked Smart Golf, aka Wicked Smat. This is your host, Michael Leonard, and this podcast is committed to helping you play better golf without changing your swing. Today, we got someone that is going to help you out from tee to green and probably a lot with the course management side of things. We have a top 50 Golf Digest, top 100 golf.com, 2025 PGA National Teacher and Coach of the Year, and also the Director of Instruction at Jupiter Hills Golf Club. Jason Vale, thanks so much for being here, man.
Michael, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. You have done a lot in the golf world, and we have some avid listeners that I know are always looking for some tips to improve. We got you on a tour week as well. So before getting into your background, where are you at right now, and what's kind of going on in your world?
I am just outside of Philadelphia at my hotel at the Truist Championship at Philly Cricket Club this week. So I got some work done with some players. Got here on Monday morning. Got some work done yesterday. Work done today. It's kind of a rainy week in town so far. So hit and miss on when we've been able to get out there. But so far so good. We had some sun this afternoon. It worked out nice.
Fantastic. And you had you said three players in the field?
Yeah, I had three players this week.
Fantastic. This is it's got to be a lot of fun to, see him compete at the highest levels and obviously see all the hard work kind of pay off. What's this progression been like, obviously, to get to, all those accolades I just mentioned and working with the top players in the game. Where did this all start for you?
Well, the coaching element's been with me for my entire life. I grew up with a father who was a high school football and basketball coach for 40 years. I knew I wanted to coach from a young age. I was a big basketball guy growing up, and I thought since the time I was 8 years old, I was going to coach college basketball. Kind of geared everything towards that. Found golf late in high school. Picked up the game pretty quickly and got where I kind of enjoyed the fact as a player that I got to make my own decisions. I got to set my own practice plans. I got to explore a little bit without, having a quote unquote head coach, especially when it's your dad. Overseeing lots of things. And my dad's a wonderful coach and a wonderful father throughout that. But I kind of I liked the individuality of it. I really did. I liked being able to call my own plays, make my own decisions, things like that. It was golf came about in a great time in my life where I was probably mature enough in some ways mentally, probably in some ways not, through a couple of clubs, I know, but it was this curious time, I think, in my life from an athletic standpoint. I'd from basketball world, I'd just kind of grown up with it, and it was something I remember drawing out of bounds plays during church and things like that. So like it had been with me for a while. So this new thing and this new avenue of golf that I got to explore was really cool for my curious mind at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with golf. I'm sure we're just always learning, and I'm like 400 episodes in this podcast and still learning so much, and that's kind of what makes it fun. But from a coach's point, that's always you have to take the knowledge that you have, and then obviously work with those players. So, what do you think makes a good golf coach? Because obviously, there's a name on my subtitle of my brand is Better Golf Without Swing Changes. I am not against coaching at all. I've had amazing coaches over the years. It's just not my specialty. So when players are looking to work with someone, what do you find are maybe two or three things that, solid coaches that you've worked with have in common and can really kind of help guide players on the right path?
I think the best of the best are adaptable. I think that from a coaching standpoint, they're able to look at different swings, different patterns, and understand the way that player maybe started out playing as a kid. I like to explore that history with a player when I first meet with them. Who was their first coach? What were the fundamentals they were taught? What was their picture of the golf swing? Did they have Jack Nicklaus's golf swing or Frank Nobilo's golf swing or Johnny Miller's golf swing? Who were their idols? Because those are going to be the things that as kids that we gravitate towards, those patterns. Freddie Couples and Davis Love were kind of my idols when I first started playing. So everything that I mimicked came from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's important to know a player's history. So I think that's a big part of being a really good coach, especially at the highest level, is the adaptability to not have a swing model, but to understand patterns of different players. And then to be curious about the individual. I think that's one of the cool things about coaching our sport is that a lot of people don't know this, maybe from a listening standpoint, but I don't get to say what time we're showing up tomorrow, and I don't get to say as the coach what time practice ends. So like, normally when you go, you're playing on a basketball team, practices at 8:30 in the morning, be here no later than, 8:15, be dressed, be ready to go. The coach says that. Then at the end, he tells you when you can go home. As a PGA Tour coach, they basically tell you when they're going to show up and when they want you here, and then you're only done when they say you're done. So
Right.
that part of it's very different from a coaching standpoint. You are managing situations. Tournament weeks on the PGA Tour are huge from the management standpoint. Just knowing when you need to say something and when you don't. I had a opportunity to say something today when I was asked. I was, luckily ready for the question and had an answer. And I think that's what a lot of the good ones do is they're not holding things back, but
Mm-hmm.
making sure that when they do say something to a player of this level, that it's meaningful.
Mm.
And they don't just say things just to say things. If you're trying to make yourself important to the player, I think that's a bad way to go about it. They'll realize how important you are, but if you try to make yourself important to the player, it's a
Uh-huh.
huge mistake in my opinion. And I think the best of the best out here really do a good job of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you got to kind of remove the ego part of it, and obviously you're there to help them out, but not overwhelm them. I think I heard you in a different podcast talking about that too. It's kind of a push and pull, right? You want to provide value, but you don't want to obviously reboot their swing. They've gotten to that level. What does that look like for a tournament week, and how can everyday golfers use that for a member guest they have coming up or their club championship? Because I feel like to me, I see a lot of players go on these YouTube binges or they try and get all the content, the week before and they think more swing thoughts is going to lead to better golf or being more prepared. So how do you kind of manage that with the pros and how would you recommend the everyday golfer do the same?
I think it's a great question, and comparing and contrasting. I think my book fills up at Jupiter Hills the week before member guests really
Sure.
quickly. Everybody wants this, they want that, and they want it quickly, and they want it now, and they want it to work all weekend. And we really should have been building up, for member guests, 4 months before member guest ever came. We should already it'd be like giving a quarterback a playbook the night before a game and saying, "Hey, study this, and when I call a play, let me run the play I want you to run." That
Hmm.
playbook in a good coach player relationship, that playbook's established months in advance. It's
Hmm.
established in the off season, and it doesn't mean that we don't veer from the playbook a little bit, but our playbook's pretty strong. Lucas Glover and I have been together for several years. We have a pretty strong playbook. And if he ever says something that's kind of outside of our playbook, my ears perk up even more because he's feeling something different.
Hmm.
We've never talked about this, and here he is bringing it to my attention. I think that's kind of the fun part sometimes, is that when something's a little off the reservation and you have to discuss it. That's where the push and pull and the give and take of any good player coach relationship happens. And I enjoy that part of it because I enjoy partnering with players. Another player that I had this week, we haven't been together a terrible long time, just since right before the Masters. We started working together to see if it would be a good fit. It's been a good fit so far, but he's in a very different place. We're developing our playbook.
Hmm.
And this week on site, we're saying, hey, these are the plays we're going to run, and let's just stick to it instead of bouncing around this idea or that idea. We're here. We can bounce those ideas off of each other in Jupiter, on an off week. But since we're here, let's stick to the couple of things that we know we can run,
Hmm.
and let's just ride them hard. And then we'll regroup next week, and we'll take the good or the bad, and we'll dissect that a little bit. Then we'll put it back in. This worked, and this felt good. Man, this sounded really good, but I couldn't make it work on the golf course. Those are learning things, especially new in a relationship. Those are the things we have to share.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a like you said, you got to kind of develop that relationship and not introduce too much. So, what are some things that like the best players in the world are thinking about during tournament weeks? Is it a swing thought, a setup thought? Is it a feel? Like, is everyone a little bit different? Like, how do they, get the maybe the anchor that they need without the overwhelm?
Well, I think, and this goes back to the original question too, and what your audience can do. Like with all of my guys, we call Monday, it's home base. So on Monday at a tournament site, and this is where a lot of amateurs get off, they don't have a strong enough home base. And what I mean by that is, when we get here and we've flown in Sunday night or Monday morning, and these are our first golf balls on the range that week. It's all the simple fundamental stuff. Is the ball in the right place? Is our posture good? Is our alignment good? Have we checked our grip and club face? Just all of these little tilts and bends.
Mm-hmm.
Because no different than the rest of your audience, tour players, while they're very, very good at what they do, they usually make home base mistakes because they weren't paying attention to it. And once they make the home base mistake, the ball doesn't fly exactly the way they want to. And then you can start seeing them. They start thinking about their backswing or thinking about what they're doing in the downswing. And that hamster wheel can start going. And usually the mistake was made before they ever swung. And so same thing goes with your audience. I really prescribe for every player, especially at the club level, to have a really great home base and revisit home base all the time to make sure all of that stuff is in working order so that the big stuff never happens. If something's off at home base, you're basically downloading a virus into your golf swing. All golfers are compensators. The best players in the world are master compensators. That's why they're the best in the world. They are better at compensating than we are. And so if something's off, they'll figure out a way around it. And so will the everyday player at the club. The everyday player at the club or the weekend warrior is going to make a mistake and then figure out a compensating move to make the ball fly the way that they're anticipating it flying. And when they do that, that's when the virus is downloaded into the swing.
That's a really good metaphor. I love the home base and the virus. So what are some home base things? Is you mentioned ball position, anything else that you like, maybe three things that players can think about like during home base sessions?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's, I have another great player that when we first started working together, he plays a draw, but he can fade it and actually likes to hit it both ways a little bit. And when he was going to hit a fade on the range, I couldn't tell he was hitting a fade. And I should be able, as his coach, to say without asking, you're going to, like, oh, we're fading this one here. And so when his alignments got to what I would call vanilla, he was too down the line for a drawer who is going to now hit an alternate shot. He was too square. And I couldn't notice that the fade was coming, and I think that's a big thing for all players. Is if you're a biased fader or a biased drawer, you got to make sure you can realign things to affect the path of the club to create a different shot shape. For drawers, I really like to make sure if I'm standing down the line that I can see the top of their left arm. And then their right arm is more underneath their left arm. That's how you're going to deliver a club as a drawer. So I want to make sure I can see that at address. If you can't see that at address, that player is going to try to add that in on the way to the ball, and they're going to present the heel more oftentimes than not. The path's going to shift back. The divot's not going to be as in front because their body's tilting backwards as they try to do that. So I think your basic tilts and bends for 80% of the players at home and here, three quarters of your audience is making this mistake. The left side of the pelvis should be a little higher than the right at address so that the pelvis works in this oval arc in the pivot backwards and forwards. Most of the people in your audience are just like the players at my club. And when I come in, the right hip's higher than the left. And for those of your audience who are fighting a sway or don't make a deep enough pivot, the right hip's higher. And as soon as they go to move and transfer pressure to the trail foot, the right hip hikes up. And good analogy is that pirate ship at the fair that just kind of rocks back and forth. That's what their pelvis is doing instead of actually turning and loading into the ground and loading into their feet a little bit. So every player's a little different. I'm fortunate, I kind of use that as a badge of honor, so to speak, out here, is that I've got players that play right to left shots predominantly, players that play left to right shots predominantly. And you could walk down the range and see all of my guys and couldn't tell that I coached them based off of like some swing model or
Mm.
anything. They are their own. Every one of my players is a case study of one. All right, they're their own unique individual. They have different bodies, they have different ball flight tendencies, and they have different length arms versus how tall they are. So it's a matter of just putting this matchup together for each player, and that's no different for your audience as well.
Hmm.
Good coaches that coach your audience can do that, can put together a golf swing that's basically custom built for the player in front of them.
I like that. Swing your swing truly is great advice then. And it's
Yeah,
just about
swing your swing with really good fundamentals. Don't swing your swing with really bad fundamentals.
touche. I like that. Yeah, I've never really understand the systems because, like you said, everyone's body type's so different. We'll get into the fitness side of things and the TPI and the golf forever stuff in a sec. But I think that is something I've found when I've worked with 10, 15 coaches over my 27 years playing, and I feel like those are always the ones that are helping you kind of swing your swing. So you gave some really good stuff for what players should be thinking about. Anything that you find that the pros do really well in terms of like, is it playing one shot shape? Is it playing the same kind of trajectory? Like anything they do that you're like, man, this is so easy. I don't know why the, 10, 15 handicaps simply don't adapt or try and do these things. Cause I know you work with so many different types of players.
Well, the best players in the world and what a practice round is, at a PGA Tour event. This week we're at Philly Cricket Club. Nobody's played here. We're playing the Truist Championship here because next week we're at Quail Hollow where we normally play the Truist. So this is a really cool week because everybody shows up here having not played Philly Cricket Club.
Mm-hmm.
And the cricket club has moved the routing just a little bit so it's a better routing for a PGA Tour event. So the first tee is not actually the first tee. So it's even if they had played here, it's in a little bit different order. It's a great golf course. It's going to be really fun. It's a cool piece of property. I think it's going to show well on TV. Hopefully we stay away from the rain. But a normal practice round is obviously guys aren't working on their swings. They're working on the shots they're going to need, given the prevailing winds and thing like that. So that's an upper level type of thing that a tour player is going to notice more so than the guy that's playing his home course, in a member guest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But what they do is they are really monitoring when a flag is here, where does the miss need to be? And they're really good at making sure if a shot, even though they're the best players in the world, they don't hit every shot perfectly, but they do miss it better than our normal guys and a member guest. They plot themselves around where they know that they're going to make some bogeys. They want to make sure that they're not turning these bogey situations into doubles, and they're not turning par situations into bogeys by missing it in the wrong position. Very, very early on, just say there's a front left flag, or we have today on number 5 here, it's par 5. There's only 2 par 5s. There's 2 right-sided flags we think they'll play. And there are 2 places on the right side of the green. You just cannot have it to those flags. And so today we're sitting there, hitting 6 or 7 shots, trying to get it close from a place just in case, is this okay place to miss it? And one of my players is like, no way can we miss it here to that flag. So even if this player, doesn't knock it on the green in 2, or if he misses it in the left bunker, the left bunker is probably a 60-40 shot to get it up and down, where it's 80-20, maybe 85-15 at best that you're going to get it up and down from the right. So just kind of knowing those situations and avoiding double bogeys and bogeys is huge, I think. And that's something that I always say, just because you can't, hit it exactly like a tour player doesn't mean you can't think like a tour player. And I think all the members at our clubs can think like tour players. And I think that's a big part of scoring.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. It's just making better decisions and leaving yourself some easier non-short-sighted chips and trying to avoid the bunkers. I look at the bunker stats for amateur golfers.
Yeah.
We're not very good out of there.
Well, you mentioned that there's, like I always say, there's 3 ways to miss a golf shot, and one of them is completely acceptable. All right. So you can miss a golf shot by making a bad swing. The best players in the world make bad swings. So does the rank and file of everyday golfers, obviously. So that's completely acceptable. All right. Do not make a mistake by making a poor decision or having a poor process before you hit the golf ball. All right. Those would be the ones that I would, you know, lightly kick my bag over after a missed shot. It's like I really didn't have a plan for this shot, or I really made a bad decision. And by bad decisions, I mean like when I'm working with junior golfers who I never want to discourage from exploration or like make them too predictable or make them too cautious, so to speak. And they'll try any shot, right? And so if they have a shot, I ask them, can you hit the shot twice? I know you're good enough to take it off this hard pan and hit this low cut and run it up the throw to the green. I know you're good enough to do that. But in a golf tournament, you have to weigh and measure that. Can I do it twice? If you can do it twice in a row, I'd take the shot on. If you don't know that you could pull it off twice in a row, then you really need to think about the decision making that's going to go into that.
Yeah, that's really really good perspective on the three misses. I hadn't thought about it like that. And you mentioned the process side of things. So how good are these guys with their process, their pre-shot routines versus the everyday golfer?
Their decision making process is usually pretty good because when they're in the right frame of mind, okay, if when they're not in the right frame of mind, and that they're human beings, we all go to our jobs and have a bad day, so they can go to their jobs and have a bad day too. It could be the rental car wasn't on time, or it could be any of these things, or they didn't have what I like for breakfast. I mean, it's anything, just normal human being stuff. So given that they're engaged and they're in there and their talk is really good with their caddy and they've really planned out a shot, then they can be extremely committed to what they're doing. Especially when they're feeling really good about their ball flight, their golf swing, they can be extremely committed. And the trick is, and this is where the everyday golfer, we're not as good as they are, but we can still be just as committed to this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's a huge part of playing better golf without rearranging your golf swing every week and watching YouTube. They are extremely good at knowing how far each club carries, and very good at understanding different places in the country, how that affects how far their ball carries. So your ball in Phoenix is going to carry much farther than your golf ball in Jupiter, Florida. And so understanding that, getting that established early on in the week, and I really think that most everyday golfers are not honest and do not know exactly how far every club carries in the air, so that they can know how to play to certain flags, whether it's a front flag, a middle flag, or a back flag. A lot of golf courses now have sprinkler heads with 3 yardages on them. I always tell players, if you've got a middle flag and it's 150 yards and the back of the green is 168, hit the most club that won't carry 168. Because we're going to miss more shots than we're going to absolutely pummel. So that shot's probably going to accidentally end up close to the flag. And if we can make sure that the everyday golfer, amateur golfer, is accidentally hitting it close, that's a way better way to play golf.
Yeah, that's man, those are two good things I really want everyone to hear is have your distances dialed. We have so much, information out there. I know you're, TrackMan certified. I know you have all the guys have all the equipment. The everyday golfer though still has the ability to get some different launch monitors that are 200, 500, $1,000 that are still really good. How should players use technology like that? You mentioned dialing the distances, but how else can they maybe use stuff like that to not get overwhelmed, but still kind of progress their knowledge and or golf swing?
Well, there's a whole bunch of use this analogy, people with an MRI machine that don't know how an MRI works. That's what some of these launch monitors can be for the everyday golfing public. So I always tell, I can make this mistake tomorrow if I'm not careful. You can use technology for good or you can use it for evil. And if you've got a whole bunch of numbers up there and you're worrying about your vertical swing plane when you don't know what that is, then you're probably not using it for good. So I look at the only numbers I would throw up there for members are, I don't even throw a lot of times the club path up there. I'll throw up the launch direction.
Okay.
Which way did this golf ball launch in relation to my target line? And then which way did it spin? So if you put launch direction and spin axis up there, or just put the curve number up there, and you want to play a draw, well, a draw should start right at the target line and curve to the left. And let's see how many times we can start a ball to the right and allow it to curve to the left. And then the carry numbers for sure need to be up there. It's just like, hey, I just need to know. And then there's always a cone of dispersion for every player. So for me, I play a draw predominantly. When I do miss it, I hit a slight pull draw. So my dispersion, if I hit 20 draws at a center flag with a 7-iron, my dispersion is going to error slightly long and left. All right. So when I get a left flag, I need to be aiming at the right side of the green.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because that's what I mean by accidentally hitting it close. If I'm aiming at the right side of the green for a left flag, that cone or that dispersion oval is going to skew towards middle of the green to left flag. And I obviously don't want to be missing a left flag to the left. So if I hit an awesome draw, it's going to draw into the middle of the green. I'm going to have 25 feet. If I hit my normal shot, I'm going to slightly pull it. It's going to be a little long, and it's going to be right at the flag.
This hurts because I wish I heard that. I just finished a tournament. I got second place, and I had a pull draw that it put me in a really bad spot. I made double and lost by 2. And I did that over the 3 days. That was the miss. Now that you kind of say that, and I follow the decade principles, to the T. I really try and harp course management and making good decisions. But I like that you said the dispersion part of it too. So that's a really good way players can use those launch monitors as distances, and like you said, just not overwhelming too much with the 14 different things that can be on the screen.
There's more than 14. And some people are trying to use them all.
Yeah, I've been playing this game for a long time, and obviously I have the brand, and I love the game, and I started going to TrackMan, and even I'm like, what am I looking at sometimes? So yeah, like I think that's really good. The last part I wanted to ask about, just with preparation that you talked about, like you said that players are trying to shape shots, they're trying to get clear. Same thing with a guy that's going out for his member guest, right? Should they have every tee shot, do you think, mapped out? Should they have their really clear on what shot they're trying to play? Like, how much can preparation help with the overall events?
I think it's just like any sporting event. Let's say you're a competitive amateur. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, because we have a lot of them here. Whether it's senior golfers to college golfers, but they love the competition side of it.
Yeah. So since I'm in Philadelphia, let's say the Eagles are going to play the Cowboys next week. All right. So from Monday morning until Sunday at 4:00, okay, they are preparing to play the Cowboys. Everything that they are doing is, what do the Cowboys do on short and long versus short and third and short? Okay, what do the Cowboys tend to do in this situation? And they are preparing to play the Cowboys. If you're going to prepare to play an event with technology now, you can Google map the golf course. So you can pull it up. You can start measuring things. There's a lot of different programs. One of the ones that I use is Swing U, which is fantastic for gathering stats and pre-planning a golf course. And I teach all my juniors to do this, is to really map out the golf course. So before you play your first practice round, you have a game plan. Doesn't mean that once you get out there that the game plan's not going to change a little bit, but at least you're not walking in there completely blind. You're walking on the first tee going, hey, it's a slight dog leg to the left. It's this far to the corner. This is a perfect 3-wood draw off the tee. I'm going to go 3-wood draw here. That's going to leave me 9-iron in. Okay, good. Now I'm starting to write down before I ever get to the property. Well, wow, I just mapped this out. It looks like less than driver. I'm going to be hitting more so than I normally do. So what does my week of prep look like? Well, I'm going to be hitting a lot of tee shots with less than driver. Or, wow, these greens are pretty small, so even if I have a really good ball striking week, I'm still going to miss some greens. So I need to really pay attention to to my short game this week. And just any of these little things that can help you. Now, the very next week could be driver off of every tee, right? Because you're no longer playing the Cowboys, you're playing the Chargers. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
you need to prep, and I think that makes practice way more fun. And if we start talking about it from a sports standpoint, is you are prepping, you are preparing to play a golf course. So let's be prepared to play that golf course. Then when that week's over, let's prepare to play the next one.
You are the king of metaphors, by the way. I love that one. No, so I mean because you're so right. It's the Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati. Like
Yeah.
if you're playing them versus it's such a different thing, and that's how players probably should do it versus just a generic thing. So home base is good for that one day, but then it's like you said, doing your homework and then kind of practicing more of the shots that you're bound to hit. I love that. I think that a lot of players can really get a lot, hopefully, out of that and kind of customize it. And like you said, have some fun with it.
Well,
And then
it makes like practice not practice anymore. You're
right,
actually
yeah, it's prep.
preparing to do something. Exactly. And I think that's a way more fun way of going about your business, because you're going to play better if you feel more prepared.
Love that. Well, I'm about to publish my third book all about tournament golf, and no doubt that's getting in there. So you're going to be wicked famous, Jason.
Love it.
So let's talk about speed, because obviously speed is everything. You see the longest drivers out there. You see how important it is to hit it far. There's a lot of studies out there from, scratch golfers hit it 25 yards farther than this next handicap or whatever it is. And it's just so important. What do you think, from a coaching perspective, what do you think are some of the killers of speed that are limiting distance and making golf a lot harder?
Oh, all right. We're going down this rabbit hole
We
again
got
here.
to, because
Okay.
man, I used to hit it nowhere and now I hit it really far, and it makes golf a lot easier. And I've had so many listeners add distance, and it just makes the game, it's just a lot easier when you have a wedge in versus a 7-iron. So from a coaching perspective, I know it's very different than just, hey, speed train or hey, work out a little bit more. What do you see like setup wise or equipment wise that are just like, man, this is killing your distance?
All right. Well, let's start with this point. Um, your listeners, if they're talking about distance, all right, the first thing they need to do is they need to take their 5-iron or 5-iron equivalent club. Let's call it a 5 hybrid. All
Okay.
right. All right. They need to take basically their standard deviation of carry with that club and multiply it by 36. All right. Once you get that number, that's going to give you the appropriate tees you should be playing. All right. So if it's 175, it's somewhere around 6,200 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's make sure that before we try to go adding distance, that you're actually playing the right tees, because the other part of that is that golf courses should be built, and good ones mostly are, but there's a lot of them that are not. Golf courses should be built with multiple landing areas, not multiple tees.
Mm.
So if my wife and myself and Cameron Champ go play, and we play 3 different tees, and the first hole is designed for a driver and a short iron. That means Cameron Champ should be hitting a short iron. I should be hitting a short iron. My wife should be hitting a short iron. But when tees are in the wrong place, all right, Cameron Champ's hitting a short iron. I'm hitting a middle iron, and my wife's hitting all she's got, because we all end up in the same place.
Mm.
So I think making sure you play the appropriate tees, that's my soapbox on that. And it's not from
It's true. Yeah.
see it forward. It's from the standpoint that the designer of the hole designed the hole to play a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're playing too far back, you're hitting it into a green that was designed for a short iron with a hybrid, and now we're behind the 8 ball altogether. All right. So from that standpoint, like appropriate tees, appropriate landing areas, and making sure that we've got a sensible number in your head. All right. Now we can get into the physical part of the speed stuff. So the next thing I'd say for your audience trying to gather grads, don't add speed to a bad pattern. All right. So if you've got a bad ball flight pattern, all right, then you add speed to that, you're going to get more crooked than you are now. All right. So it'll go extra crooked, and it might go a little bit farther, but you're still going to lose golf balls. So build a solid.
Can I play devil's advocate just for this one?
Sure,
Because you're
sure.
much more accomplished in the coaching side. Have you found though that sometimes adding a better smoothing out tempo or just making it a little faster can kind of course correct some of those issues?
It can, depending on what the pattern is.
Okay.
All right. So kind of once again, case study of one.
Hmm.
Let's just say, and this is where I get really worried about some of the juniors. All right. So some of the juniors, and I somewhat agree. Okay. I can see it to a certain extent, but this is kind of my point. Well, let's teach them to hit it far and we'll teach them to hit it straight later. Okay. I agree with that, except for the fact that over half the junior golfers are in what's called reverse spine. Okay, so because of their lack of strength and they don't have a lot of stability, but they're very flexible and very mobile, they can put themselves in some places that can get them hurt.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
so if you're in a reverse spine situation and you add speed, so that's a bad pattern, and then I
Hmm.
add speed to a bad pattern, now I'm at risk for injury. Right. So we want a body, that's able to move. You don't
Hmm.
have to, we're not talking about, going in and bench pressing all day. We're talking about a stable situation that you can add speed. If I take a Prius and I put a Ferrari engine in it, we're going to go really fast. But the problem is we can't stop. The brakes on the Prius are not built to stop the speed of the Ferrari engine. So when players are trying to put on speed, they better know that they've got the brakes, because the brakes is two things. It's going to keep you from getting hurt. All right. If you can slow things down, because things can't speed up unless they can slow down. All right. So we need some brakes. All right. And then we need some brakes because we actually need the brakes to add the speed. And so many times I see players go in, to a superstore and buy a speed stick or a stack, which, everybody can have their own opinions on those types of things. All right. But they can't move well enough. They don't have a great pattern and they've got no brakes. That bothers me. Like, I'm just worried about that, because as a
Hmm.
PGA professional, I want everybody playing golf longer and more and having more fun. And if you're hurt, you're not going to do that.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And that's a good point on the junior golfers too. Like you said, they're so mobile and able to do things that their future self probably won't be able to do. Which actually is how we originally got connected, Golf Forever. I've been working with them and I know you're been working with them as well. And so that kind of is like a perfect segue into the role of mobility and fitness and being able to, swing the swing that will produce longer distances and more consistency, which every golfer wants, right? Is the more consistency. How do you see that like kind of changing the game, and what can players do with Golf Forever and other training systems out there to avoid the injury, like you said, so we can play this stupid awesome game for a long time, and then to also obviously improve and hit it a little cleaner and a little longer.
Yeah, so I got involved with Golf Forever because I'm very fortunate with the best players in the world that they have trainers, and we're a team and we partner on things together. I visit my players at the gym and I make sure that each trainer knows where I'm trying to go with the golf swing, and they help me with that. If I ask, Colby Tourier, who's Lucas's trainer, which I did about 3 years ago, I measured him in 3D. We weren't getting as much thoracic rotation as I thought we could. I
Mm.
texted him right away and I said, "Hey, I need more. I need more thoracic rotation." He texted right back, said, "I got you, pal." 6 weeks later, I got 18 more degrees. All right.
Wow.
Now I can do what I want Lucas to do because Lucas can do it. Okay.
Mm.
And these were all little things in the beginning of our relationship that have stayed with the three of us, meaning
Hmm.
Colby as his trainer, myself as his coach, and Lucas as the athlete. And so what Golf Forever did for myself, okay, I don't have a personal golf trainer. I'm friends with a lot of them, but I don't have one, coming to Jupiter Hills every day. I have a couple that work for me and with me. Golf Forever gave me that to give to a member. So through the app and through the workouts that are on there, I could actually hand Golf Forever to a member, kind of talk them through a couple of movement patterns. So going back to putting speed on a good pattern,
Hmm.
I could give them, with the swing trainer, a couple of exercise movement patterns that are going to eliminate that junior from reverse spine or help give him a feel of loading better into his trail leg. these types of things. So I could give him the pattern, and then also through Golf Forever and the app, give them an appropriate workout situation where they're not going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to build a better pattern and not get hurt. And I don't have to be there, and they don't have to hire a trainer. And like Golf Forever's given me that for the regular everyday golfer that really wants to get better and understands that there's a fitness component to getting better. We when Lance Gill and I were together full time, we stopped calling it golf fitness because that just sounds like you got to have to lift something heavy over your head or run on a treadmill for a long time. And so we called it golf performance. Everybody can get into golf performance, right? And that's the way I look at Golf Forever. Golf Forever is a necessary part of better performance.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm glad you were able to bring in I've heard that from I can't remember, another guest we had maybe last year, talking about, you want to make the swing changes, but your body literally won't let you do that. Yep. So it's kind of like you said, getting a coach like yourself to give you the plan. But then, like you said, even if you don't have a trainer like Lucas does, like you can go on the Golf Forever and you can do those certain exercises to kind of get the body in the right position. And then, like you said, kind of avoid the injury. Do you find that golfers need to do a certain exercise more or a certain type of training more than they're currently doing?
Well, I think that's basically per the demographic almost. So if we take the junior player, all right, they don't need a lot of flexible stuff, even though they change quite a bit. So when they're young and they're going through these huge growth spurts, we always think of kids as being, really flexible. They actually have these moments in time where they're not very flexible at all because they're growing and their muscles stretch and they get tight, and then they catch back up and they're themselves again. But then it happens again, 4 to 6 months later, and then we go through. So they're ever changing. But traditionally, you would say the juniors, all right, don't have enough stability. All right. So they need the strength component in the beginning. As we get older, all right, our age type of guys, okay, we're okay on the stability part of it. We don't have enough mobility or flexibility, and then balance is huge across the board. So like we test a lot of players, and if you are, let's call you 30 and above, all right, if you're not checking your ankle mobility all the time, can your ankles move? Okay, can you actually roll your foot out in both of them without having your knees and hips do all the work? That's important for two reasons. Important for three reasons. But number one, all right, you're not going to add any speed and power on something that can't move. All right, you're not going to play very well off of unlevel lies if you don't have great ankle mobility. And then that's the first place to go that gets you shuffling through the grocery store when you're older, is that you don't have enough. 60% of your proprioceptor sensors, your spidey senses that send all this stuff to your brain, they're located in your feet. So if your ankles aren't mobile enough to really feel the ground and help your body move, so ankle mobility is huge. All right, so that'd be one place. So if you're 30 and above, like start working on your ankle mobility. You won't fall and break your hip when you get 80.
Wow, I never thought about ankle mobility. I'll be honest with you, and
how ankle mobility,
like,
so you've got your ankle mobility. Your ankle moves in all different ways, right?
Yeah.
And how many different ways does your knee move?
I think just a couple.
Yeah. Okay. So if your ankles start being too stable, all right, your knees start getting mobile, and that's where a lot of knee issues come from. Orthopedic surgeons don't like to tell you that. That your knees get worn out because your ankles are supposed to be handling a lot of that. And that's all, where I'm thankful for TPI for leading me down those roads to get me to understand that stuff as a golf coach.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, so you're TPI certified. I know you use the Golf Forever and recommend that. So let's think about what does a pro do before the round? Like, how do they warm up? And then what should the amateur do? But not talking about driving range and putting green, but like, is it stretching? Is it mobility? Like just anything we can kind of steal from those guys that can help us out. I know Golf Forever has some specific like warm ups, but anything you see that's like kind of crucial to success?
Yeah, we call it activation more than anything. So most of the guys, they'll work out on a tour week. We've gotten past the point in golf where it's like, well, I want to work out, but I'm going to be really sore. Okay,
Hmm.
these guys, they're not doing the stuff that would make you sore because they've
Sure.
already done it. And they're not going to get sore. But what they are doing is activating things. We laughed about it when Tiger said he couldn't activate his glutes. Well, activating your glutes is what these guys are doing. It's a very
Okay.
important part. Now, at that time, he had to activate his glutes. That was the only way he was going to protect his knee. All right,
Hmm.
and so they are activating their body. They are greasing their body up for the movement patterns that they know are important. And every player's little activation routine's a little bit different. But it's like walking into your house and just flipping on light switches. Hey, let's get this light on. Okay, now let's go over here. Let's get it. So the house is completely lit up, and that's what they are doing. Pre-round is just getting the entire house lit up so it's ready to go.
Hmm. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I like activation. That's like a
Yeah.
good way to kind of think about it. Like you said, also from practice to performance. So again, you should have a podcast, man. You're killing it, Jason. Um, Before getting into my last question, I'm on a personal journey and I wanted to ask you kind of how I can continue to improve. I'm starting a new series on YouTube, my journey to a plus five. So I'm a plus 2.5 right now. What would you say is the one or two things I need to focus on from plus 2.5 to getting to that plus five?
Hmm. It's a great one. I mean, obviously, you're already a really good player, and so I would do and this is no different than what we have to do out here. I mean, obviously, these guys are really good players.
Yeah.
Anybody in the field can win this week. So you're playing against the best of the best. So what's going to separate you? I think first of all, being really honest about strengths and weaknesses, because you're at this point in your golfing career to try to get to where you are. We're talking about quarter of a stroke here and a quarter of a stroke there. That's the guy that wins this week is going to be better at those quarters of a stroke than the rest of the field. And that's basically where you are as a player. You're not finding these huge gains in places. You're finding these quarter stroke gains. And you're going to find those quarter stroke gains from lots of different places. And so the first thing would be just like doing a deep dive on yourself and where do you think your superpowers are. So I always like to start with a superpower. So if we went out and played today, it was you and I and two other guys. We came back in, we're having a beer after the round. What are the other three of us going to talk about you about? Like, wow, Michael, like, man, you kill it. Oh my God, man, I wish I could drive it like you. Or wow, you make all the crucial putts. Like, what
Hmm.
would we be talking about?
It would be driving. It has definitely
Okay.
became a superpower. I absolutely
Awesome.
can't wait to hit driver.
Okay, good. Okay, so whatever you do, we can't mess with the superpower, right? All
Okay.
right. Number one, I can see the look on your face when I ask the question. You get to talk about your driver. All right. So boom, you want to do that. You want to have that superpower. Lucas Glover's is his iron play, and it's, to be honest, it's just the way he squares the club face. I mean, that's
Hmm.
what makes him the unbelievable. So as a coach, the worst thing I can do is go messing around with the superpower. If I change anything in the way that club starts down from the top, is when it comes to how his hands are on the club, okay, I'm an idiot as a coach. All right. Absolute idiot as a coach. If I change the top of his backswing, I'm an idiot as a coach. All right. So there are certain things in your golf swing that are superpowers. Obviously, the driver is an area of your game that's a superpower. So I would be looking at those and saying, whatever I do to gain these quarters of a stroke, I can't make them affect these other things.
Mm.
And then as you start looking at that, you're looking at these buckets, okay, and you're trying to fill these buckets. So you've got a mental bucket. Where would you say you rate in your mental bucket?
It's getting pretty strong. I'd say
Yep.
8.5, 9. Yep.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, where do you rank in your long iron game?
Long irons, I'd say that's if I had to look at the weaker links right now, it'd probably be wedges. So yeah,
Okay,
long
great.
irons are yeah. I got the 5 and 6 used to be a liability. Now I'm just chomping to hit driver 5 iron into a par five.
That's awesome. So wedges would be a bucket that you could kind of look into. All
Hmm.
right. So then you start breaking down at your level, all right, just saying wedges isn't good enough, as a plus two to be a plus five. All
Hmm.
right. You need to be able to hit basically three different trajectories. All right. All at the same number. All right. So if
Mm.
you've got an 80-yard wedge shot, can you hit a low 80? Can you hit a mid 80? Can you hit a high 80? All right. Because you're starting to get into these situations where accessing flags is going to be important. When you have a wedge in your hand, are you able to access a back left flag and a front left flag? All
Mm.
right, with the same amount of, hey, this is my shot. So I would say that would be a huge way to do it, because that'd be more fun than saying, oh, I got to go work on my wedges. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to try to develop a skill here.
Hmm.
And that means launching it at, let's call it 30 degrees. So if you launched your wedges at 30 degrees on your stock ones and really got into, your peak height, your distance, wedges are going to get way better. But I
Love
would
that.
think you've got to, like, once
Hmm.
again, congratulations on being such a good player.
27 years. Don't get
Yeah,
me
yeah,
wrong. I was far from a child prodigy, but yeah, I really appreciate it. I feel like there's so much technology. I get to talk to smart people like you, and I just love it. And I like to try and, show people like, hey, I shot 124 in my first tournament. It's freshman year. I was terrible. Like wherever you're at, you can improve if you have that tenacity. And so it's like trying to, that's why I love, having guys like you on the podcast. You have this knowledge that most people have never even thought about. And so it's so cool to try and extract one or two little things. And I think even, if you're trying to be a scratch golfer, what you just talked about can help you out, getting the wedges dialed in and figuring out your superpower. So I appreciate you kind of thinking about it from a different point of view, because sometimes you're so invested in your own game, you can't even see, the superpowers or maybe the super weaknesses.
absolutely.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, great. Before getting to the last question, where is the best place people can follow you? I know you have a great Instagram, and you're in Florida. I don't know if you're taking any new people or anything, but where's the best place people can learn more about your skills and journey and anything else?
Uh, Usually all my social media stuff is at Jason Bale PGA. So
Okay.
they can reach out to me there. And yeah, we're at Jupiter Hills. We're very fortunate to have a membership that allows me to chase my dreams, which I think is really cool. They allow me to travel the PGA Tour when I need to, and live and Corn Ferry and wherever I need to be. They allow me to do things like this, do the things I do with the PGA. So I just can't say enough about the support system and a place like Jupiter Hills, who's allowed me to grow and dream. And I think that's a big part of, what I try to bring to the table with any player is let's explore your dreams. So yeah, if anybody
Love
needs to
that.
follow me,
Yeah, it looks like it's an awesome course, by the way. I Googled it. I was like, oh
it's
man,
it's
this
it's pretty
looks
good.
it looks really pure. Fantastic, man. Well, for my last question, we didn't really talk about putting much, but obviously it's a low-hanging fruit for a lot of amateur golfers out there. What are something that you're seeing on tour week in, week out when you're traveling with the guys that are, either putting, equipment, practice, mental game, that the everyday golfer can maybe add on to hopefully shave some of those three putts?
Yeah, so the home base stuff still applies. I mean, everybody's got their, needs to have their home base that we check. Lucas and I today, we haven't been putting great, but we haven't been putting super poorly.
Hmm.
But we made some changes on Saturday. He discovered a couple of things himself, and then today we've been here for, we played over 18 holes last 2 days, combined, and we were going to go putt. And about 30-40 minutes into the putting session, I'm watching the normal things I normally watch, and he walks over to me and goes, I just can't get right. I just can't feel like I'm in the right spot all the time. And it was one of those times where we had not had this discussion in a very long time. I hadn't heard him say it that way.
Hmm.
And luckily I had something that I, because it wasn't something I was seeing, it's something he was feeling. And
Mm.
so we just went into a kind of a home base exercise with his body about getting himself stacked. Like let's start by just being aware. By standing up, are your knees over your ankles? Are your hips over your knees? Are your shoulders over your hips? Okay. Are your eyes, level to the horizon? Okay. Like reevaluate your awareness of that. And then now let's just stack in and state and get into a tilt with that same feel. And, he loved it. It worked fine. But it's sometimes just the little simple things of awareness. But going back to, how to shoot a lower score without changing your golf swing. I mean, this is low hanging fruit right here for everybody. First of all, people are too worried about their stroke. All right. They're not worried enough about their face at impact. Okay. Like where that putter points at impact is 95% of where that ball is going to start.
Mm.
So there's all kinds of stroke gadgets. Okay, there are very few about the 95% of the start direction that's provided by the face. So then the other thing is a misnomer that they are supposed to follow through on a putt.
Mm.
All right. So
Please
they
elaborate. I like this one. I've
okay.
kind of heard
So
a little bit on here because everyone thinks you're supposed to, accelerate too much, but
yeah, well, they're afraid of decelerating.
uh-huh.
Okay, and every putter on earth is decelerating when they hit a putt. All right. Why are they decelerating?
Because they hit the ball.
Because they run into the ball. Okay. So if you're making this, perfect little stroke with no ball, and you go, this is how far my follow through is supposed to go, and then it runs into the ball. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Shouldn't go as far forward. All right. So your backstroke should always be longer than your forward stroke. All right. Maybe when you're rehearsing it, they match up the same, but you're not running into anything. Okay. So I
Mm.
think that part of it starts messing up. And I learned a lot of this from my good friend Joe Hallett, who was the PGA Teacher of the Year last year. And he's got data on it. So it needs to coast into the ball. It doesn't need to accelerate into the ball. And so that hurts two things. It hurts speed, which is the number one thing for the golfers in your audience. They don't control speed well enough. All right.
Mm.
And then while they're trying to accelerate the putter through the ball, they're adding twists to the shaft.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if I'm going to accelerate anything, I'm going to probably do something that makes the putter move around the shaft, the putter head. And that's where now we've got direction off and we've got speed off. And that doesn't seem like the greatest way to putt. So once you start understanding you do not have to accelerate, okay, and that your putter is going to hit something and slow down, and the backstroke should be longer than the forward stroke. All right, now we can actually go into really judging speed and getting speed to be number one. If you were really good at speed, and then you were really good from 8 feet and in, you're the rest. If everybody got 5% better on your podcast here at speed and 8 feet in, you'd be amazed how many strokes come off your score.
Couldn't agree more. And I got to just pull one little string on that just to clarify then. So is it a tempo thing you feel like, or do you think people take too big of a backswing and then just like kind of slow down at the ball to decelerate too much? Or like, is it using a metronome? Like what do you like kind of recommend? Because I understand the kind of that pop motion that you're talking about. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what players can like take to the range
Yeah.
or to the practice green or even to their indoor mat to kind of feel that out a little bit.
Yeah. So most players don't take a big enough backswing.
So they're
All
kind of
right.
stabby.
Yeah, they're short to long, so they're afraid of decelerating. All right, and if they're going to accelerate, then they can't take it back too far and accelerate it because then it really will go too far.
Sure.
So they take it back shorter and accelerate through it when they should be taking it back. And everybody can do this with some simple tees and a metro. I like metronomes still, so 68 beats a minute, and the backstroke is one count, impact is the other. All right, now I'm going to hit the putt a little further. So the backstroke's going to go back farther, and I'm going to come back to impact. If I went back a little further, obviously, and I kept it in the same tempo, then the putter did move a little bit more, so the ball's going to go further. And then I'm going to take it back a little farther and try to keep that in that 1-2 ratio, and just let Cam Smith had a great comment recently that I loved. He's like, I hit every putt with my backstroke. He just takes it back farther if he wants the ball to go farther, but he keeps the tempo and the rhythm the same. And I thought that was, a great way of explaining it. I just hit every putt with my backstroke.
And so his follow through is pretty much the same, though. Is that
follow through is the same? Yeah, follow through is the same. Tempo is the same. And here's one of the, arguably one of the top 5 putters in the world telling you like that I hit it with my backstroke. I don't hit it with my forward stroke. Where we're all trying to, when the putter stops, we're trying to put some force into it on the way through and trying to follow through and get my putter to keep moving towards the hole. Woo.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Like you said, it's if you get those speed drills and inside 8 feet, you're going to be wicked smart. You're going to be playing great golf. So, Jason, just really, really appreciate it, man. You're welcome anytime you want to be on the show. You got a ton of knowledge, and your metaphors are 10 out of 10. And just wanted to say thanks again for sharing so much with the audience.
Michael, I enjoyed the time. Thanks for all you do for the game, and best of luck to your audience.
Thanks, man.